What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's blog on theboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that, like me, you have a new sense of optimism as far as the Dallas Cowboys are concerned. It is Friday. Happy Friday, January the 23rd, 2026. If you have not yet, please consider subscribing here to the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. Dallas Cowboys discussion happening all the time. You get all my thoughts, opinions, interviews, etc., etc. You can also hang out with me on any level of social media. The links to all of my profiles, X, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, my personal YouTube channel, they are down in the description below. Okay, we have a very big thing to get to and a lot of thoughts within it, so let's not dilly-dally any longer. On Thursday, the Dallas Cowboys found a new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, who most recently is joining the Cowboys after a stint with the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was their defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. Obviously was critical in the development of Pat Surtain with the Denver Broncos as well. This is massive. This is huge, and it is such for a lot of reasons, as noted. Now, I think before we fully dive in on Christian Parker, I tweeted about this earlier this week. Early in the process, right after the Cowboys fired Matty Eberflus, Brandon Lee got in BLG from the mixtape. He asked me who my favorite was and whatnot for the job, obviously, and I said that it felt dumb to say Brian Flores. He was the favorite, and I think we all felt the same. But I think we all felt the same in understanding that Brian Flores was probably going to get a head coaching job. And look, it's 10:15 a.m. on Friday as I'm putting this together. For all I know, he could have one by the time you're watching this. Maybe he doesn't, but that felt possible. It felt unlikely that he would make a lateral move, obviously coming off of being the Vikings defensive coordinator to becoming the Cowboys defensive coordinator. And even then, we already have learned that he is going to return to be the Vikings defensive coordinator if he does not get a head coaching job. That being said, once we got to a level where we understood the pragmatic and practical, realistic, actually possible options, I think we all thought that Jim Leonhard was kind of our preferred favorite. I understand that there were people who felt differently. Maybe you are among that group, and maybe Christian Parker was your inside track person all along. And I'm not here to say because he wasn't my number one favorite that this is a failure in any sense. I think this is a massive success because the process that the Cowboys undertook to get to this point, this is the most important thing here. The process that the Cowboys underwent with regards to eventually choosing Christian Parker to be their defensive coordinator was sound. And that is not something that can have been said about the Cowboys in terms of recent processes. The Cowboys took their time. They were patient. They were methodical. And then finally, when it came time to choose, they acted with conviction. I know that a lot of people thought, or maybe even wanted them to wait out Jim Leonhard to see if that would happen. And maybe he would have chosen the Cowboys. Maybe he would have, taken the job and whatnot. But and even if that were the case, it doesn't make choosing Christian Parker to be a failure, because my biggest criticism of the Cowboys, and I've said this many different times, is that they have not had a North Star. Since the playoff loss that will not be referenced, they have not acted in one singular direction towards anything. And so I love this. Even if you think Christian Parker is awful, I don't think you should, to be very clear here. I'm just trying to make a point. Even if you think that Christian Parker is awful, the fact that the Dallas Cowboys took their time, laid out a plan, established points of energy to move in this direction, and then actually moved in the direction, that is something that, call it a coach, call it a player, call it a free agency move, call it a trade, call it anything you want, any move that they would or could have or have had to execute over the course of the last 2 years now, they have not moved like this in any single one of them. And so I am very grateful for this. This is honestly the most positive, optimistic thing the Dallas Cowboys have done from a process standpoint since the playoff loss that will not be referenced. And look, beyond just the bare bones, the process work, the player, the coach is a great choice and whatnot. He's developed all these players, and we'll get to that in a second. But I mean, his track record is awesome. Look, this is not a point about anybody who is older in age. I have nothing but respect for elders. I'm elders to a lot of you, or I'm an elder to a lot of you at this point. But I think this is important. Let's put this up on your screen here as the mail is passing by. My dog is going crazy. It's a tweet from Calvin Watkins of the Dallas Morning News, a series of tweets, a thread of tweets. Some Cowboys defensive coordinator stuff. Christian Parker becomes the youngest defensive coordinator in Cowboys history. He says they couldn't wait on Jim Leonhard, et cetera, et cetera. But I love Calvin's follow-up here. It doesn't necessarily mean younger coaches are better fits, but Parker seems to be a better fit than Zimmer and Eberflus. Here's the thing. Again, all due respect. Christian Parker is literally, at 34 years old, the youngest defensive coordinator in Dallas Cowboys franchise history. That's an incredibly young age. He has all of life ahead of him still. Beyond the fact that he's the youngest in team history, he is by far the youngest, literally, but he is easily the youngest they have hired in some time. I hope that this point is coming through. I recognize I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. My point in saying that is the most recent defensive coordinator, who's the most, goodness gracious, I'm all excited about this. Look, let's rework this point. All right. Christian Parker is the youngest defensive coordinator in Dallas Cowboys franchise history, which speaks for itself in a literal sense. But beyond that, the most recent defensive coordinators that this team have had are all very close in age, right? Mike Zimmer, Matt Eberflus, Dan Quinn, even the people who didn't get the job, who the Cowboys interviewed in the same sort of situations or cycles or whatever. When they hired Mike Zimmer, they were reportedly looking at Ron Rivera, Rex Ryan. You have to go all the way back to when the Cowboys hired Rob Ryan in 2011 to find another defensive coordinator who was south of 50, and he was 48, just to, again, be literal and exact here. And so, again, Christian Parker is the youngest in franchise history, which makes him the youngest in franchise history, but he is so severely a different direction than the last decade and a half's worth of options who the Cowboys have cycled through. And it may not work out because the NFL is unpredictable and a lot of things don't work out. And I think it will work out, to be very clear here. But I applaud them so much after we have begged and screamed for them to do something different. Zig when you have been zagging. And they did. They are going with a young, innovative, hot mind, someone who's been around a young, innovative, hot defense, obviously, most recently with the Philadelphia Eagles. But again, his time in Denver speaks for itself, obviously. I mean, this is so nice. It is so refreshing to see the Cowboys saying that thing that everybody does that we always act like we're too good for. We're going to try that out this time. Respect. And if it doesn't work, I can square that. I can logic that. I can accept that it didn't work because it didn't work. But what is difficult to accept, which has been the case for a long time now, is that it didn't work because you didn't try. That is not the case here. And I am so pleased with the process. Again, even if you're someone like me who wanted Jim Leonard, I think he was kind of the clubhouse favorite among the fans. I don't mean to speak for the fans, but I mean, in terms of what you see online from people, our comments at Blog on the Boys, I could not be more pleased with how we got here and what it ultimately yielded. Now, in situations like this, something we do at SB Nation a lot is lean into our communities and see how other people feel. We do that, obviously, is, the Cowboys are ready to play games. It's the way the NFC East mixtape was born. And along those lines, let's take a look at what our friends over at Bleeding Green Nation have to say about Christian Parker. Let's put this up on your screen. Caught the mute in time. This is from Bleeding Green Nation's article that noted that Christian Parker was set to become the Cowboys defensive coordinator. And they're referencing an older article of theirs where they, discussed what Christian Parker brought to the team. So you can read this at bleedinggreennation.com if you would like. The 34-year-old Parker has a strong track record of getting the best out of his players. He notably oversaw the development of Pat Surtain with the Denver Broncos before coming to Philly. Again, this was written from their perspective, and coaching Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean to all-pro status in their second seasons. The Eagles have had one of the best defenses in the NFL since they hired him along with Vic Fangio during the 2024 offseason. The team would probably like to retain him. Again, this was written from the Eagles' perspective, especially since he could potentially be a Fangio successor one day, but it's quite possible, if not outright likely, that Parker will be poached before that can happen. I want to be very clear here and note that I would never want the Cowboys to hire someone or sign someone with the express purpose or priority of hindering a division rival or any team in general. It is a happy plus. It is a happy benefit that the Cowboys got better by hiring Christian Parker and the Eagles got worse, right? Like, we'll definitely take that. But I know that it's the Eagles, and it's difficult to acknowledge that they've been very good and they've been the gold standard as far as, NFL roster construction and management and team. Well, right now, you can't really say that coming off their playoff loss, but you get my point. They've been very, very, very good here. And it is so exciting to look at what Christian Parker did in Philadelphia specifically, if we're talking about just his most recent stop, and to think about how that can translate to the likes of Savon Ravel or Avion Terrell or Jamal McCoy or whatever. I mean, you get my point. The infusion that he is going to have of positive energy and wisdom with the young secondary players that the Cowboys have and are going to accrue, obviously, we believe, over the course of this offseason is very, very, very exciting. And that goes back to the age thing. Again, I don't think anyone wants to be obsessed with the fact that Christian Parker is 34 years old, but I mean, he's barely older than Dak Prescott. I mean, when you really put it in context that way. And so I do believe that he is going to be able to connect with and develop his secondary, his defense at large in a way that is different. Again, older defensive coordinators can certainly be successful. The person who we hope he is most similar to in Vic Fangio is 67 years old. This isn't about don't get someone who is older in age. This is just about this is finally something that is from a different cut. This is finally something that is not what the Cowboys have been doing for so long, and it theoretically will have a lot of success or will lend to a lot of success with this team, which is obviously the whole point behind the hire. And so everything about who Christian Parker is and what he's done recently, check. A+, no notes. Well done all the way around from the Dallas Cowboys. They deserve a lot of kudos for this overall process. And I mean, like, think about that. Like, think about how difficult it has been to give this team credit for anything as of late. And look, we have all burned our hand on the stove that is the Dallas Cowboys, or that is Dallas Cowboys fandom, many a time. The Christian Parker hire, as exciting as it is, I'm not ready to run back and check to see if it's hot or not, right? We all understand that this is a team that loves to give us a little bit of hope before they pull the rug out from underneath us. But what I will say is, with regards to the last 2 years, everything that has happened since the Packers playoff loss, right? This is the most positive turn the franchise has taken from a process making standpoint. It is, I don't want to say impossible, but it is very difficult to find anything the Cowboys have done from a decision making standpoint, or something that required a decision making process in the time after the Packers playoff loss, the most recent one, obviously. It's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to find something where you can look at it and say that contract extension, that trade, that free agency move, that decision, that coaching hire, that coaching process, that whatever, that was done logically, that was done unemotionally, and that was done in a forward-thinking sort of way. You can't really find anything that checks all three of those boxes until now. The Christian Parker hire was done logically, it was done unemotionally, and it was done in a forward-thinking manner. Finally, at long last, it took 2 years to finally get something that, again, appeases all levels of the criteria here. But that is why it is so exciting. This is my favorite thing. Again, if we're looking specifically at the process of it all, that the Cowboys have done since that playoff loss, because it shows a willingness to be different. Maybe they won't. Again, I fully understand the stove will burn me. I know that. You know that. We have all been there. But if there were ever a moment to look at something that they have done over the course of the last 2 years specifically and say, maybe things are going to be different, this is it. Again, not saying that it is necessarily going to be a catalyst for the future. I obviously hope it will be. We all hope it will be. But it carries the most promise in that regard than anything else, any extension, any trade, any other decision that they have made over the course of the last 2 years. The darkest part of the night may be over. It may not. Again, we know better. The stove. But today, the stove is a little bit cooler. And I just could not be more pleased. I really could not. I'm quite happy with the way the Cowboys chose to go about this, especially I think to close it, like, would we have celebrated if Jim Leonard had been the case? Absolutely. But I almost, and I was asked about this. I do a hit every week in San Antonio with my buddies, Jason Minix and Joe Ryan-Eagle. And this week, Joe Ryan-Eagle asked me, I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but he said, do the Cowboys need to make a decision? We do the hits on Wednesday, and that was obviously the day before. And Joe asked me, he said, should the Cowboys make a move? Because what if they wait out Jim Leonard and he chooses someone else or whatever, like, right? Like the question we've kind of been debating online for the last couple of weeks now. And I said, you know what? I'm good. I'm good with even if that happens, because the process has been so sound. That was my answer. And I love that the Cowboys bucked what I was saying a little bit. I love the conviction. And look, I hand up. This is I'm touching a lot of different points here. Hand up. And I've got videos about this. I've got articles about this. I was very excited about the Matt Eberflus hire a year ago, and I stand by that excitement from the perspective of he had a great previous stint with the Cowboys. He had gotten incredible play out of the Cowboys linebackers when he was the linebackers coach specifically, obviously. And nobody knew, myself included, obviously, that they were going to continue their toxic ways and trade Micah Parsons and make matters all the more difficult for them across the course of the 2025 season. That being said, that did not work out. But that was not, even though I was excited about the Matt Eberflus hire, that was not acting with conviction. That was acting out of convenience, right? This move, choosing Christian Parker, even when they're still kind of, or were maybe still kind of waiting on Jim Leonard, that is saying, yeah, we could wait, but let's do it. Let's move forward. That is conviction. That is the literal definition of conviction. And I applaud the Cowboys for saying, you know what? We're not going to wait anymore. We're going to go. We believe this is our guy. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's be the trailblazer. Let's be the trendsetter. Let's be the ones who move first and move quickly so that we are not left standing, or we are not left in a position where we don't control what we want to do. Conviction requires control. And the Cowboys have not been an organization that has been about conviction, that has been about proper and legitimate control, not maniacal control. They have not been an organization that has operated or moved that way for 2 years now. And so this is finally that, and it's wonderful to see. Great job, Cowboys. I seriously am so impressed, and I'm very, very happy to be so. I hope you're happy. I feel great. I hope you feel just as happy and delighted as I do. So, okay, I mentioned my personal YouTube channel. If you like golf, I've been doing a lot of golf stuff lately. Interview with Maverick McNeely, PGA Tour player, that dropped today as well on Friday. You can go check that out. Again, the link to my YouTube and all my social profiles are down in the description below. We'll be back here on Monday. And I think that when we're back, the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots will be in the Super Bowl. I know it's not necessarily like a hot take or anything, but those are my predictions. I will be at the Super Bowl with SB Nation doing a lot of stuff. Obviously, the Cowboys aren't in it, but I'll be doing what I can from a Cowboys perspective while there. So looking forward to bringing you all along with me. For now, though, once again, please subscribe to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and follow me wherever you want. We can be friends on the internet, just about every single place on the internet. That would make me happy as well. Don't know what that noise is, but I'm going to get out of here before my dog figures out it is a threat, apparently. My name is RJ Ochoa, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thanks so much for giving me some of your time. It is the most precious resource you have in this life, and I do not take that lightly. I value it very, very, very much. I take it very seriously, and I hope that this was worth it. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out, and we will see you next time. Go Cowboys.